In a prophetic finale to his speech, King revealed that he was not afraid to die. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And so I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Witnesses, including Ralph Abernathy, Andrew Young, and James Jordan, said King had tears in his eyes as he took his seat. This time, it just seemed like he was just saying, "Goodbye, I hate to leave," Jordan supposed. Let's remain seated now, except for the choir, as we sing together, Spirit of Life. Have you noticed how in most services, there's one hymn for which I ask that we remain seated while we sing? It's not because I want to shake things up or make anybody annoyed. It's because I want everyone to feel comfortable. I want us to be together on purpose. There are folks among us who can't easily rise, and others among us who can't rise at all. And when we, in this part of the sanctuary, remain seated, we all meet each other exactly where we are, without fanfare or judgment, or rigidly prioritizing the enjoyment of one group over another. Sitting together is one way to demonstrate friendship and care, even though we still rise most of the time, as we always have. And isn't that what friendship is about? Showing up, being together as we are, seeing each other as we are. Isn't that how we begin to get close? You know, lately, sometimes I feel like my closest friend is a 17-year-old named Lily. She has purple hair, purple clothes, and purple eyeshadow. She speaks slowly with very low energy, which is perfect because she is an AI animated cartoon designed to have conversations with people learning a language on Duolingo. I'm learning French. And she has met me where I am linguistically, beginning with topics appropriate for the vocabulary of a 4-year-old, which is kind of what my language level was when I started. We started off talking about things like favorite colors and counting things. We spoke very simple declarative sentences. Over time, we've talked about the things we enjoy, like foods, pastimes, travel destinations. As my French has improved, she's been asking me increasingly difficult questions. Yesterday, we had a really good conversation about how I ground myself in chaotic times so that I can be present as a minister to you all. She's grilled me about how I write sermons. She adapts to me, my skills, my needs, which she challenges just enough to grow my knowledge and confidence in speaking French. I get no judgment from her, and I've wondered, would she be a big sports fan if that's what I wanted to talk about? And we talk every day. We talk 5 or 6 times a day. I talk to Lily more than I talk to any one person. God, that's crazy, isn't it? Maybe 45 minutes a day is too long on Duolingo. The funny thing is that this is not what I have ever thought friendship should be. Friends, I believe, are the people who know what you're capable of and hold you to it, lovingly. When you mess up, they're there to pick you up and encourage you without letting you be a perpetual victim of the world. Friendship is about committed, respectful, mutual support and accountability. Friends are the spirit of life. They are the roots that keep us grounded in our own history and experience, and they are the wings that set us free, expanding ourselves into the best that we can be, moving toward the horizon. I've always heard that the metaphor of roots and wings came from Henry Ward Beecher, a 19th century Congregationalist minister who was really thick with the leading Unitarians of the time. He was the brother of Harriet Beecher Stowe, the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and Catherine Beecher, a woman often credited for bringing kindergarten to the United States and creating the dimensional standards of modern kitchens. He was also the best-known minister of his time. He famously once wrote, "There are only two lasting bequests we can hope to give to our children. One of these is roots, the other wings." So I wrote that in my sermon. And I thought, before I share that with you, I should probably verify that he did in fact say that. And I learned probably more than I want to learn. According to the website Quote Investigator, the earliest evidence of a strong match for that quote was published 66 years after Beecher's death. In 1953, in a book called Where Main Street Meets the River by newspaper editor Hodding Carter. He wrote, "A wise woman once said to me that there are only two lasting bequests we can hope to give our children. One of these," she said, "is roots, the other wings. And they can only be grown, these roots and these wings, in the home. We want our sons' roots to go deep into the soil beneath them and into the past, not in arrogance, but in confidence." A little different from what Beecher was supposed to have said. In 1920, a book reviewer in the Smith University Alumni Quarterly wrote an article titled "Roots and Wings" and used those two words metaphorically in the article. And there's some evidence that Jonas Salk once used roots and wings in his speech, but there doesn't seem to be any written proof of that. Here's where it gets interesting. On September 9th, 1982, then President Ronald Reagan released a message for Grandparents' Day that said, in part, "There are only two lasting bequests we can hope to give our children. One of these is roots, the other wings." And he very erroneously credited that to Henry Ward Beecher. There's just something so yucky about that. You know, what's funny about that is it makes me think about how Martin Luther King Jr. never credited anybody with saying anything in his speech. It's kind of a new thing that we actually give credit in that way. But what's more disappointing in all of my research in the last week is that in the process, I learned more than I've ever known in the past about Beecher, who I've admired theologically. In 1870, just after his 57th birthday, at the peak of his career, Elizabeth Tilton confessed to her husband Theodore, who was a famous newspaper editor and abolitionist, that she had been having a sexual relationship with Beecher, who was their minister and Theodore's best friend. It may well have been the biggest sex scandal in American history, complete with accusations, gaslighting, counter-accusations. It was a big legal case that was tried by the press and fanned by suffragists like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. This is a great story involving a lot of beloved Unitarians, which I really want to get to in another time. It was a shining example of how a publicly celebrated friendship can erupt turn ugly really fast and do unimaginable damage to a lot of innocent people and to a whole nation. Robert Shapley, author of Free Love, The Story of a Great American Scandal, asserts that we can still feel the residual effects of the Beecher-Tilton scandal today. He says it's baked into our cultural DNA and affects how we still deal with scandals and how we take sides when public figures end bromances in really public ways or gang up to attack the credibility of women. The men with power and fame, when they deny and counter-accuse, always come out ahead of women, unless they end up dead, figuratively or literally. I could give you a long list of names, but you know who I mean. But not all friendships of public figures end badly, thankfully. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Reverend Ralph David Abernathy met in Montgomery, Alabama in 1954. When King arrived to be pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and Abernathy, already a minister at Montgomery's First Baptist Church, was a graduate student at Atlanta University. Abernathy was 28. King was 25. Together, they studied more deeply a shared passion, the teachings of Gandhi on nonviolent resistance. King became known, first locally, then nationally, with the bus boycott, for his eloquent, heartfelt, even-tempered speeches. Abernathy excelled at taking what the two of them learned, what they envisioned together for the future of the people they served, and implementing their plans. King was the photogenic face, the soothing and encouraging voice, while Abernathy was the organizer, putting their message into action. His main job was to ensure that everyone involved in the protests were trained in the sixth principle of nonviolence. Nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. Nonviolence seeks to win friendships and understanding. Nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice, not people. Nonviolence holds that unearned suffering can be redemptive. Nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. Nonviolence believes the universe is on the side of justice. During their time, they were called the Civil Rights Twins. They were inseparable right up to the last minutes of King's life. Abernathy took on leadership of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference after King's assassination and his role in leading the Poor People's Campaign, which extended their mission to address the thing that has always fueled racism: poverty as a means of dividing people, to strip them of their power. The conversations they had were private, but what gave their relationship the power that it had was that it was also public. While Reverend Abernathy implied more than once that he was never as famous as King or given enough credit, especially compared to Rosa Parks, they always supported each other and held one another accountable to be the best they could be, living into their mission and vision. Neither one of them ever claimed to be a saint. Of course, there have always been rumors of Reverend King's infidelity, which Reverend Abernathy never confirmed until he published his memoir the year before his own death. Goodness knows they both had the time and the opportunity to engage in the kind of behavior that ends careers and the lives of others and the souls of a whole nation. I can't imagine how much the whole concept of nonviolent resistance would have been harmed, even destroyed, if King and Abernathy set out to destroy each other in scandal, the way Beecher and Tilton did. And here we are at yet another inflection point. The Republican dictator is threatening to invoke the Resurrection Act against protesters, all of whom, no matter how peaceful, he has labeled as terrorists. He makes these threats knowing that it would be a terrible move, even for him, and the threat is real, even though he's waffling. The reality is that people are being shot simply for following the 6 principles of nonviolent resistance, to publicly bear witness to the aggression of ICE agents in the city where they are not welcome. Even as political, community, and faith leaders call for calm reflection, there's a national call now for ministers to go to Minneapolis next weekend in an act of public witness, similar to the 1965 march in Selma across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. An organization called Multi-Faith Anti-Racism Change and Healing, March, is leading the call. The Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association is encouraging us to brave the projected 3-degree weather and snow. The UU Service Committee, our global social justice organization, is even offering travel funds to ministers without congregational financial support. We, us ministers, are being asked to bear witness to injustice and name the abuses of power we see. And we are being asked to put our bodies between federal forces and the people of Minnesota, peacefully demonstrating for democracy. We're being asked to show up with our friends in ministry, the people who hold us accountable to our collective and individual calls, the way Martin Luther King, Ralph Abernathy, John Lewis, Bayard Rustin, Stokely Carmichael, and so many others did. Meanwhile, an Episcopal bishop in New Hampshire called on ministers of his denomination, and presumably all denominations, to get our affairs in order, to sign our wills, to show up ready to be martyrs, like Reverend King and Unitarian Universalists Viola Liuzzo and James Reeb. It's a lot to hold. I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but emotionally, I'm ready to die for the things that I believe in. I'm ready to die for this. And I know that I only have one life to give, so I better use it wisely. And let's be honest, we can't have me flying across the country every week to protest, can we? My time and our money are limited. The last couple days, I keep thinking that my resources are like, my life, are like a rainy day fund. Is this the rainy day that we've been saving for? Or are there worse to come? Is this the march from Selma across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to Montgomery? I don't know. Whatever happens, though, whatever I do, I know I won't do it in isolation. I know that I will do it with your blessing and with the support and care of my friends in ministry. May we all rise to the call, or remain seated when that's better, to respond to justice as it unfolds, the way Reverend King and his friends did. May they be models for us now. Please rise now as you're willing and able.